thank the owner of the hotel, Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Hassan, for letting us to be here. Today we have Dr. Bruno to talk about Lotus and Papyrus. Dr. Bruno.
Well, you better wait with your applause till we have When we normal modern people talk about nature, we normally say the wind blows and the river flows and so on. But we don't really think that the river does anything or the wind does anything. Well, this morning we saw that the wind is an active force. And in German we even say, my stomach hurts me, that the stomach is doing something to me. And this is exactly what the ancient Egyptians thought, because everything was living. And what they called gods are natural forces acting, doing things, and influencing the human life. And so they had a very peculiar opinion about their own country, because they didn't say, we came to this country and we evolved our culture, but they said, the gods have made this country for us to be able to do our culture. So they said Egypt is a special country prepared by the gods to help us evolve. And so a very important feature of this Egyptian country made by the gods is the difference between Upper and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt, the narrow valley of the Nile, the desert is always visible, and Lower Egypt, in the ancient times, there were papyrus swamps like forests, and everything was green, no desert to be seen, and so on. But since the gods made this, there must be one god who has made the desert, and another one who has made the fertility, the plants growing, and so on. And it would be too far-going if we start now to tell about the myth of Osiris and of his brother Set and his son, as we say, Horus. But of course this has nothing to do with brother and son, and so in our modern meaning. But we encounter that Set was given in the end of this quarrel the reign, the rule of the desert, and Horus was given the rule of the fertile agricultural lands, all the fields and so on. But as the desert is sterile, cannot bring forth anything, Horus was always superior, and he always acted as if he was the ruler of the whole country, including this desert, this strange desert. So, now I'll try to just in a condensed 1 hour form to show the main features of this polarity. And this was connected with a number of symbols. And one of the symbols we see here, Lotus, was the symbol for Upper Egypt, and papyrus was the symbol for Lower Egypt. And so every time you see lotus, it means Upper Egypt. Every time you see papyrus, it's Lower Egypt. And there are more symbols, of course, but we'll see them afterwards. Let us first start looking at this papyrus plant. There is no more papyrus in Egypt now. I photographed this one in Sicily, in Italy. So when you look at Egypt by night from a satellite, I had the chance of traveling with a satellite some time ago, you know, and so I took this photo. Sometimes computers are still doing what they want. But if you look at Egypt by night, it has the shape of a flower. It has a shape of papyrus, and it is really strange. And you see, our dear President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he always says, we have not enough electricity. But if you look here, you see it seems to be quite enough to illuminate Egypt. So you see the difference between Lower Egypt, Horus country, Papyrus country, and Upper Egypt, the country of Set, of his adversary. Now we just have a short look at the geography. This is a papyrus landscape as we have to imagine in ancient Egypt. But this is also taken in Italy. They are lucky. I am always waiting that somebody in Egypt will start growing papyrus again. So you must imagine this, where they were hunting hippopotamus and crocodiles and so on, and hunting birds. And then we have Upper Egypt with all this desert around. Sometimes there's only a small strip of green, or even not green like here. And it is a quite different landscape between Upper and Lower Egypt. And when it comes to the desert, this is a flight from Luxor to Hurghada. It is really no green, not any plant at all. And this is the country of Setek. He wants to compress, to dry, and to kill everything. And this is the opposition to Horus. So, at a certain moment, about 3000 before Christ, the two countries were united, and there's a very strange monument, the so-called marmor palette, which you see here. It is from the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And this is strange because on one side, the king has the red crown of Lower Egypt, and he is killing his foes. And on the other side, he has the white crown of Upper Egypt, and again he is killing a foe. So is the king from one side fighting the king from the other side, and so on? It is a very tricky question. But in between these two animals, they again show two opposing forces. They don't want to be together. In the middle, we have this hollow, and this means that when these two come together, there is space, there is room that somebody can evolve, can develop. And so, normally the marmor palette is considered You see the name of the king written up here is the same on two sides. So it means he's fighting himself or something. So this is normally considered the beginning of Egyptian history. And from this moment on, it is evolving. And Horus is seen as a falcon. This is the famous statue of Khafra in the museum in Cairo. When you look at him from the front side, it is just somebody sitting there. But if you look from the side, as we do now, you see there's somebody behind him, inspirating him and giving him power and legitimizing his rule. And so this is a very significant statue. There must have been more of this, because on some statues you see fragments of wings or so, but this is the only extant one. And if we go down now, the king is sitting on the throne, and if we look a little more down, we see an ornament on the throne. And what is it? Papyrus and Lotus. It is the two plants entwining. There's a middle axis, and they seem to be knotted around this middle axis. So, Lotus and Papyrus at the throne of the king, what do they mean? They mean that the king has to unite these two country parts, Upper and Lower Egypt, to be able to rule. But there's a very mysterious thing, because there's a hieroglyph in the middle, and this hieroglyph means to breathe. It has two meanings. It means to breathe and to unite. What are we doing when we breathe in our respiration? We exhale, we push the air out, and we inhale. And interpreting this sign, we could say, Set is the inhalation, compression, and Horus is the widening, the opposite force. And so the two have to work together. They are enemies, but they have to work together to make Egypt blossom. So we see some of these representations. Dr. Yaritz will know this well, because it's from his area in Aswan. And on every throne, you see this sign. The lung and the papyrus and lotus, on every throne. Sometimes it's more explicit, sometimes it's more condensed, but you always see this. And sometimes it is varied in different shapes, and you always see the lungs in the middle and papyrus and lotus around. Another example. We could show about 100 or more, because they are everywhere. And I took some of these pictures. I took some of them because I wanted to show that they are omnipresent. Wherever you go in Egypt, you find these symbols. But if the two countries are knotted together, nothing moves. If our respiration would be in the middle, remaining there, we couldn't live on. So it must be a process, always opening the knot and knotting again. And that is what the Egyptians did in their coronation. And this is another representation. Why is he doing 2 steps? I want to do only 1 step at a time, but the computer has its own brain. Now here we have Tuesday. Here we have 2 gods. They are doing the same thing, nothing, the Papyrus and Lotus on the throne. And on top you see the throne name of the pharaoh. In this case, it is Senusret the first. And who is in reality uniting Upper and Lower Egypt? It is, of course, the Nile. The Nile flows from Upper Egypt to Lower Egypt. It's uniting the 2 countries. And the Nile, as I said at the beginning, is a being. He is somebody, the Nile. And if I say he is somebody, I'm wrong. She is somebody. No, he or she. And so the Egyptians said the Nile is man and woman at the same time. He is androgynous. So he has 1 breast, and he is shown because, of course, the Nile is an old person. He is shown as an old, a little fattened person. And he is uniting the 2 parts of the country. This is from another statue, and here you see the Nile is a little bit younger, it seems, but doing the same job. And this is from a statue in Luxor Museum, in the cachette downstairs. And it is always that when the uniting is taking place, the king sits on top. So it is necessary for the king that he sits on a united country. But in another place, there are different gods doing this. Yes. Here it is Horus and Set personally. They are doing the job themselves. And as Set was regarded a little bit like the devil, but the devil is a necessary thing. All the Germans, they know in Goethe's Faust, they say, I am part of the force who wants to do bad things, to do evil, but who always produces something good. And that is exactly what Set is doing. So the Egyptians deemed him necessary, but they were afraid of him. I will show you at the end of the lecture. So this is one of the rare examples where Set personally is shown. It is also from the throne of Senusret in Cairo Museum. And I'm very grateful that the Egyptians left this document to see, because normally in most of these representations, it is Tot who does the work for Seti. And Tot, as many of you know, he is the god of mathematics and of writing and of documentation and all that. So he's also fixing things, just where the white crown is really white and the red crown is really red. So I choose this one to show it's from the tomb of Upper Nile. And sometimes it is just in hieroglyphs. It is the two ladies, the vulture and the cobra, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and it is Papyrus and Lotus, and they are separated by life. When they come together, this makes life possible. So, it's a simple way to express things, but it's a very effective and very precise way to show what is necessary. We are now in the big hall of the Temple of Karnak, and on the inner south wall, we see this happening again. It is the end of the coronation ceremony, and when Horus and Thoth unite Papyrus and Lotus, the king is crouching on top, so he is the legitimate ruler of the whole country. Another rare picture where Set is shown is this coronation scene. It is from the small temple in Abu Simbel. And here, Thoth and Horus together, they crown King Ramses. And it is strange, as I said at the beginning, Horus is always presenting himself as the ruler of all. He is not so modest as to be in Upper Egypt, in Lower Egypt alone, but he is presenting the whole of the country, and so he is wearing the double crown mostly, whereas Set, poor fellow, he has no crown at all. But they have to act together to make Egypt live. When we are looking at the temple, I think you all know this one. It is the new temple in Karnak. We have again, the whole temple is constructed along this Papyrus and Lotus polarity. The two pylon towers are corresponding in many texts to Isis and Nephthys. So Isis was partner of Osiris, Lower Egypt, and Nephthys was partner of Set, Upper Egypt. So even when standing in front of the temple, you already have this polarity. But when entering, you always see right and left the different Upper and Lower Egypt, white and red crown, and so on. The middle axis of the temple is corresponding to the Nile, of course, and the inner part of the temple is always south, and the outer part is always north, notwithstanding if the temple is oriented otherwise in geography, but there's a symbolical organization, and this is an east-west view, so we can't see the proper axis, and this temple, you always see the papyrus or lotus columns. In Karnak there are both of them. In the middle, the open ones are more papyrus, and the other ones are more resembling to lotus. And the ceiling of the temple, of course, is the sky. if you consider the whole temple to be Egypt, so the ceiling is the sky, I always imagine how many thousands and millions of hours Egyptian painters were painting these stars, because there are really millions of them. And they must have done it quickly, but it is not so easy to paint overhead, as everybody knows who has done it once. In some temples, especially in the late ones, the ceiling is not only decorated with stars, but with a whole astronomical textbook, as we have here in Dandara. There is the zodiac, all the signs of the zodiac, and of course the sky again is not just a thing. It is a person, it is a being, it is Nut. And Nut is doing the polarity in another way. She swallows the sun in the evening, and she gives birth to the sun in the morning. So there's another polarity going on, an east-west one, and the other one of Horus and Set is the north-south one. So in Dandara, there's a special thing in one corner. You see the feet of Nut, and the body of Nut is going all around the ceiling. And the body of Nut is with waves, because she is Nun already, also the primeval water, ocean, from which all the boats are coming. You see the boats seem to be upside down, but we'll turn them around now. And there is the temple of Dandara with the Hathor capital, and the sun coming out of the womb of Nut is illuminating the temple of Dandara. So if we turn the picture around, we see from this moment, from this birth, all the ships, all the boats of the stars and of the zodiac are beginning their journey. They are sailing off, and in the evening they'll be swallowed again. So another view of the temple. Here you can clearly see on the right side you have the red crown, on the left side you have the white crown. And we could now proceed with hundreds of pictures. In every temple you can see at least a pair of them, but maybe more. The basement of the temple, the lower register, is always showing plants, or, as you see here, gods of the Egyptian provinces. They have the names of their provinces on their head, and they carry Papyrus or Lotus. This is from Abydos, very beautiful reliefs, and they bring the produce of their nome, of their province, to the god. So there's a procession, and the whole temple rests on these gods, as Egypt rests on its agricultural wealth. This is the other side, and here they are carrying lotus and carrying their produce out of the temple. This would be another conference, because the offerings given to the gods they are impregnated by the gods, and then they are given back to humanity. So this is from Sema-Tawy. I just copied two columns together. Normally we go in the middle. And so we have at the left side again the lotus, and at the right side papyrus. And it seems, this is just speculation of mine, that this idea that the north is always dominating is shown that in the middle there's, on the right and left side, there's papyrus. Yeah. So, Abu Simbel, this temple in the south, where Egypt was always threatened by the Nubians, by the wicked Nubians, as they called them. And here we find another thing. We find, when we look at the sides of the statues on this part, we see prisoners, and again, on one side, on the left one, there are African prisoners, because Africa is in the south, it belongs to Set. And on the other side, there are Asiatic prisoners, Syrian or Libyan or Greek or so. And you see they are of a very different aspect. They are clearly shown as North and South people, African and Asian, and they are marked again by papyrus, and on the other side they are marked by lotus. As you see here. So even the ropes with which the prisoners are bound show this symbolism, and we are always reminded that it's not really picturing reality only, but there's always in the background always a symbolic meaning connected with it. Now, nearing the end of my lecture, I want to show you a very strange thing. This Horus and Set polarity is not ending when people die, it is going on in the other world. And there is in the tomb of Set-Nacht, he has the name of Set in his name, and in the tomb of Ramses VI, there is a very strange picture that we see a person, and the person has two heads, the head of Set and the head of Horus. Because the two have to work together, and so they become twins. They become a double person. And you see they are he is in the middle of a kind of rope. The rope draws ships, boats, and they erect poles where the ropes are fixed at the riverside, and the left one, as you can just see, is the white crown, and the right one is the red crown. But as Horus dominates everything, this strange animal is the head of Horus and a white crown, and the head of the king, and again a white crown. Because the king is Horus. The king was always addressed as Horus, and so he had to act in this reality. And in the Old Kingdom, the wife of the king was called she who sees Set. So this means that she saw that her husband was also Set, with this double thing. In the tomb of Ramses VI, the head of Set is hacked off, is destroyed. And Egyptologists are convinced that this was done in ancient pharaonic time, because they always were afraid of Set, and so they pictured him, but then they chiseled him off, not to make him live, not to make him act. So, now, before ending, I want to issue a warning. There is a lot of crazy people in our world. And one of these crazy people is called Daniken. And this Mr. Daniken, he is ascribing many mysteries to aliens coming from outside of our world. And he said the ancient Egyptians, they had electricity, and they had high voltage lamps, and they had accumulators and everything. And so I'll show you one of these accumulators. Oh, first we just see a detail of that, but it's clear we have here the head of Horus and the head of Seti. Now, this is a high voltage lamp, and this is an accumulator. And the accumulator is called Jed by the ancient Egyptians, and it means to remain, to be stable. And in this picture, Jed is acting as Shu. He is the god lifting up the sky, and the sky is inside this lotus bud, and of course it's two flowers coming out of the waters, but the one will become lotus and the other one will become papyrus. So if you ever go to Dandara and you are told that this is a high voltage lamp and an accumulator, I please beg you not to believe what is told to you. I'll finish to show you a real lotus.